All right, welcome back to another episode of Journey of the Wounded Soul.
What?
Yep.
We just changed it?
Yep. I mean, after our identity crisis, right?
We did have a identity crisis last time.
We had a little bit of an identity crisis, and we're like, man, this Journey of the Wounded Masculine doesn't seem to encompass all of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. And our whole audience. And we keep bouncing back and forth between masculine and feminine within ourselves. So we don't want to be exclusive of the feminine, even inside of ourselves, let alone, women and
I don't see any reason. I'd like to stop separating masculine and feminine.
Same.
Bring it together. We all have both sides within. And so let's take masculine and feminine out of this and just be Journey of the Wounded Soul.
Absolutely. I like it.
I like it too.
Where it came from, naturally, as we just talked about it, but I was had a counseling session with my elder this week, and we were talking about the subject, and it just naturally flew out of his mouth, like the journey of the wounded soul. And then he said it again, and it just felt right. And then I brought it up to you, and we discussed it a bit. We were talking about the soul maybe having that immortal status or the moral status.
Yep.
Yeah, but it isn't.
It isn't.
And it doesn't exclude any religion. It doesn't exclude anybody's belief system. We all agree upon a soul.
Yeah. I mean, except for maybe an atheist that might not believe we have a soul, but...
Maybe.
Oh, well. We love you too, atheists.
Yes, sir. And welcome.
Yeah, we're back. We had a couple weeks of off time, which was nice to have a weekend of not recording.
And we did that really, and just to be completely transparent, is we didn't want to just record to speak, to fill the void to fill the silence.
Yep.
We wanted to really have a good subject that really came to us and that we sat with. So we didn't record last week because neither one of us were feeling great.
No, it didn't feel very good. We were getting blasted with solar flares last weekend. I don't know about y'all, but when solar flares are hitting... I'm a bit tired and not wanting to do it.
I took like a 3-hour nap. I never do that.
Uh-huh.
I was tired.
Uh-huh.
I just felt like crap. So, yeah, so we're refreshed. You actually brought this subject up a couple of weeks ago, and I wasn't on board with it yet. And then what happened? Bunch of triggers.
Yeah. So that's today's episode. We want to talk about triggers.
Yep.
And what are they? How do we handle them?
And what do they look like? Like different forms of them too.
Yep, different forms of triggers and what it really means when we're triggered and how we can use our triggers for our own spiritual growth and healing rather than expecting the change to come from outside of ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we'll get into, feels like a good topic to kind of tie in some judgment versus discernment.
Yeah, I like that when we talked about that. You had a really good explanation of the differences.
Mm-hmm.
You want to jump into it now?
No. Let's see how that naturally comes up.
Okay.
I guess let's get into the triggers first.
You want to just start the definition?
Yeah.
Let's do that. We like our definitions. This one comes from Merriam-Webster. And it says, to cause an intense and usual negative emotional reaction in someone. And then I like the second one as well. To initiate and actuate. Set off by a trigger. Well, what is it? Sorry.
Smash.
Boom. There it goes. Don't need it.
No notebook today.
No notebook today. So, like, if you really think about a trigger, I mean, we think of it as a weapon, right? It's in a pistol or a rifle. And it's just a small piece of metal in a physical form that has the effect that actuates the entire device.
Yep.
And it can create chaos. It can create all kinds of things.
Yep.
Can it create good things? Yeah.
It can.
Yeah. So let's get into it then.
Let's get into it. So what do we want to...
Well, I think we just go through, like, my thought when you asked that was just we can have triggers like we were talking about a little earlier, is we can have just a trigger by a smell, by somebody that says something, an event. I mean, what else can we be triggered by? There's lots of things.
There's lots of things.
Yeah.
Events, people. smells, sounds,
Mm-hmm.
vibes.
Sure. Yeah, just walking into a place,
Uh-huh.
you can get triggered just by the energy in the room, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of things. Well, I'll just talk about what came up for me this past couple of weeks here with the triggers. Is I'm in the middle of moving. Well, not moving yet, but in the process of selling a home, and then there's a rental property I was going to move back into, and I've done that a couple times, and that familiar feeling that it gave me because, and just to be completely transparent, it's I've been divorced 3 times now, and that's not proud of that, but I'm also very grateful for those experiences that got me to the point where I am now today. But I bought this rental property and I moved into it initially, and I spent a couple years there and got married to my second wife. Moved to a new home where I bought with her. That relationship ended, and then I moved back into the rental property.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent there about a year or 2 years again and met my third wife. And so did the same damn thing again. I went and bought another home, bought another rental property, lost that. Now I'm selling the home that we currently had, and now I'm possibly moving back into rental. And that familiar feeling made me feel like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Made me feel like I'm moving back to where I was 2 times previously.
It's a bit of a
little
bit of a cycle happening here.
Yeah, so it triggered me, and that's a lot of the reason I was not feeling good the last couple of weeks. I didn't know why I was feeling this way, and I just feel like crap. I'm like, I don't know, I don't understand what's going on, because it wasn't a physical person that triggered me, said something like, a smart ass comment that just gets you, or a familiar thing that someone did. It's a situational thing that triggered me, and I didn't even really know what to do with it because I didn't identify it, didn't know why I felt the way I did.
Yeah.
And I'm still not through it yet.
But eventually you've started to come and realize why you're feeling that way, because you took the trigger and you're like, hey,
brought awareness to it.
Bring awareness. Like, well, why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
What do I need to sit with and feel here?
Well, I think a lot of it for me was my ego. Like, I'd moved and progressed so far in my life, financially doing great. And then after that divorce, it all fell apart. The house of cards just fell. And so my ego said, I don't want to admit that. I don't want to admit that I
failed.
Yeah.
But we never fail.
It's true. Like, I don't look at that divorce as a failure. I look at it as a learning opportunity. I really do. And I'm not kidding myself with that.
Well,
I came out of this 3 months of darkness, the cave experience, and it cost me thousands of dollars to go through this process because I wasn't working for those 3-4 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed it. It was more priceless. I couldn't have bought any more counseling. I could have spent 10 years in counseling and not got what I got out of the cave. So is it a failure?
No.
But from the outside perspective,
the ego can see things as failure.
Right. But from an outsider's perspective, it does look like failure. And so I wrestled with that. And then returning back to my previous place where I lived also felt like a failure to me. So I was wrestling with my ego, excited myself with it. But then I talked to my counselor, Ed, about it. And, the ego wasn't big a part of it. It wasn't as big of a part as I thought it was. And it's just that familiar feeling.
Here's one thing that I noticed too that I catch in myself is wrestling between what's my intuition and intuition versus trigger. So what if you feeling all that and you interpret it as, oh, it's my ego saying, oh, I don't like this, I feel like a failure. But the other side of that equation is, well, what if that's just your intuition telling you not to go back there?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I came to, because we were talking about
it. Yeah, because actually I was looking at moving into the other side of the duplex with you, and my daughter's coming with us and all that, and I drove down there yesterday, and while we were there, my gut was just like, oh man, this does not feel right. And
but what else did you feel? You said you didn't feel it right for me either.
Yeah, and then I didn't feel right for you.
And I've been resistant against it the whole time. I'm thinking, well,
you're just like pushing forward.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about buying another place, and the market's so high, and I just thought maybe I'd take some time and wait. But I just feel so much resistance, and I thought that egoic thing where I was getting triggered was the reason, but it's just really the intuition kicking in that I need to do something different. I don't even know what that is yet.
Yeah.
So I'm about to be homeless. Not really, but it could happen. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of reminds me of, of what is it, a couple years ago now, I had moved in with some friends, and previous between moving in with them, I was just like not feeling good about it. Like I felt fear, I felt all kinds of stuff. And I interpreted that as, oh, this is just my fears coming up. It's just my ego being afraid of, like, I've been used to living by myself and moving in with people.
Yeah.
And all that. But long story short, it ended up being the total wrong move. And it was just my intuition telling me ahead of time, like, no, this isn't where you need to go. And I think in the end, I'm glad I went, because it did teach me that. I mean, that experience taught me a lot of things. But I also think I didn't really need it to teach me those things.
If you would listen to your intuition.
Yeah. It would have just been, oh, yeah, no, this isn't right.
So it was a lesson of learning your intuition,
yeah,
maybe?
Yeah. Lesson of learning intuition.
Another thing it's doing is it's like lessons in learning and then distinguishing the difference between, am I operating out of fear of using the ego out of fear, or am I listening to my intuition? So there's a huge difference. So this trigger has brought so much understanding, like for you too.
Mm-hmm.
Like my trigger of this whole situation, we've talked about a few times, and now it's caused your plans to change. Your direction might change completely too.
Mm-hmm.
My future's uncertain, and I'm okay with that. It's wild.
I know it was fun trying to teach my daughter about this yesterday, because we went to dinner afterwards, and she's just like manic on her phone, like looking for houses for us and stuff. And I'm like, Whitney, that's not how we're gonna find it. Like, let go, chill out, everything's gonna be okay. But it was a good time for me to teach her some, like, it's gonna be okay. We'll find the right place. That feels right.
Yeah.
Me and her moving in together feels right, in alignment. So I just gotta find the right place.
Yep. That's that stepping into that void we talked to a few times. We had some oracle cards I played with, and it was talking about stepping into the abyss. And the abyss, as you step, the step appeared, but you're stepping into the unknown every single time without having to control it, and stepping into that uncertainty is really scary if you're really not grounded.
If you're not grounded, or don't have like a trust and a faith in that everything's gonna work out.
The great force that works in all of us is going to take care of us.
Yep.
And how we get all messed up about, we have to do this and we have to do that, and most of the things we worried about didn't even happen, but we drove ourselves crazy with the possibilities of everything that could happen.
Yeah, it's best just to stay the hell out of all that shit.
Yeah.
But that's easier said than done.
That's true.
One thing I've been learning is, like, keep myself busy. Like, that kind of keeps me out of it. Make some art, do that. Focus on grounded activities to stay out of this guy.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned something earlier about the triggers, and I know I'm going to be oversharing a bit this time, and I want to, because this is our personal journeys, right?
Yep.
And it's not even more real than us sharing our own stories.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about the difference between discernment. With judgment.
Yep, judgment versus discernment.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and jump into that piece, and I'll give an example?
Yeah. So judgment, the way I look at judgment and discernment is that, so when we are judging something, we're actually calling it into our reality, because we are looking at that thing as like, oh, this is wrong and should not exist. And when we do that, we're actually saying that part of the universe is not right, and everything that exists has its reason. Out of fear too. And it's out of fear and lack of understanding.
True.
Of like the bigger picture and perception of things. And There's all kinds of different contrasts on this planet, and all of it has a purpose and is important for each person's and soul's journey. And it's so when we're actually judging something, it kind of brings it to us. And one example of that is
that's true.
Yeah, like I had a friend back in the day that he quit smoking, but then he was always like hating on all the smokers around him when he was like, dude, you were just a smoker like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And then it's funny, I seen him like he's surrounded by smokers all the time. And I just find it really hilarious. I mean, there was a time where I got really judgmental against marijuana, and then all my roommates were smoking marijuana. It was in my face the whole time. And,
sure.
I had to come to this place of just like, oh, like settle. And then sometimes then life can bring those things into your life. Like, oh, I'm judging marijuana. Now here I am smoking marijuana all the time.
Right.
But to balance all that out, we bring discernment to things. And so really what judgment, when you feel judgment, it's really just telling you, oh, I don't want that thing in my life anymore. So when you're feeling that come up, instead of like hating on it, instead looking at it, oh, that's not for me. And that's not how I want to live my life. And so to take those like little judgments and things that we see, and instead of projecting hate or dislike or whatever towards the person or situation or whatever it is, to just take it as a message of, oh, my soul is calling me to like not partake in that version of reality anymore.
So from your perspective there, when you're judging something like that, you're trying to eradicate it from the world, like out of existence. I'm judging it. It doesn't exist anymore. I stopped smoking, so everyone should stop smoking.
Yep.
I became vegan, so everyone needs to be vegan.
Yep.
That kind of thing.
I became a Christian, so everyone should be Christian,
right.
And everyone that's not. And I think that's kind of, what's caused so much separation in our world right now. Or to bring up the COVID stuff, it's right. Like, well, I don't want to wear a mask, so everyone shouldn't wear a mask. And I think we all need to honor each other's decisions, right. And embrace the contrast of life.
Yeah, I mean, does it bother a person, since you brought up the mask thing, it doesn't bother me somebody else is wearing a mask. Just don't make me wear a mask because you want to wear it. Or vice versa.
Yeah, it goes both ways.
Right. Yeah, it's just respecting the personal choices that a person makes.
Yep.
And that's that discernment piece that you're talking about. And in discernment, what you're saying is that it's like you're accepting that, hey, I quit smoking, but you guys are welcome to. It's your choice. That's the difference between judging it and being discerning, mm-hmm. Right?
Yep. So. Yeah, and you can know when you really heal like a habit or an addiction like that when you quit it, and then it's just like, oh, I love everybody still that partakes in that thing.
Sure.
That's their business, and
right.
I've completed my journey with that substance or that experience or that person or whatever, and we can go our separate ways. Okay. But if we're holding judgment on it, like judging these things that we do within ourselves, it's just going to keep bringing it back to us.
Sure. And then you'll keep getting triggered
mm-hmm.
by different things.
Yep.
It's like being late. We've all been late, right? You get into the car and you're ready to go, and every slow person seems to jump in front of you when you're in a hurry, right? Because you're holding that energy of being in a rush. And you're telling the universe that I'm in a hurry. Well, it's so like the
universe, like, oh, you're in a hurry, hey? Yeah. Here you go.
Like laughs at you, like, okay, you're good.
I actually had a funny experience around that one time. I was working on a project in Ann Arbor, and it was this job, like pretty cool job, putting all these like lights and salt panels at a friend's studio in Ann Arbor, and I had another friend working with me that day, and for some reason I was just like in this push energy all day. It was just like, oh, I want to make sure I'm saving this friend money, and I'm trying to be a man in front of this other person, and contractor hat on, and I was just like distraught, and then I needed something from the store to continue, and I'm like, oh man, really? And my friend that was working with me that day, she's like, you should probably just like sit and meditate for a minute before you go to the store. 'Cause she could tell I was just like in this kind of push mode.
Go.
And I'm like, no, I don't have time for that. Yeah. and I get in the car, and I swear to God, like every slow person ever got in front of me. Even I get to the Home Depot, and the aisle that I need is closed off for like 10 minutes. And I was so mad. I was so triggered. And I finally get back with the stuff, and I was just like, oh yeah, you're right. I should have just meditated first. And
because you had that time, you wasted that time.
No,
waiting for the aisle to open.
Exactly. I could have done it in a lot calmer and present space if I would have just taken the suggestion.
Right.
And
she was feeling into it, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I remember you telling me that story. One thing I wanted to bring up real quick, and it'll lead into another discussion, is that something you said about COVID. Something that's been really bothering me this week is, we were talking about the social media. We're talking about just mindlessly scrolling through social media, and I'm sure we all do this.
Yeah, it's a major problem.
You said, like, it's a dopamine release, right? We're doing it, we're getting something from it. I mean, we can even associate that with porn, same type of thing. It's in the dopamine release. But I was thinking about it, and I had a discussion with a friend a while ago about having these, like, levels of awareness. And levels is a terrible word, because then it distinguishes like some kind of competition between us. There's no competition between us. There shouldn't be.
Everyone's where they be.
Cooperation.
Yep.
Between souls working through this wounded world. And I don't know. It felt like sometimes in the spiritual aspects, whether it's Christianity, Buddhism, it doesn't matter what religion it is, or
New Age spirituality.
We just have these different levels, and we can get a hierarchy of thought. Like oh man, we got this great information, and you feel real high, right? Mm-hmm. You're vibing high, and you make yourself above people.
Elevated.
You elevate. Yeah, I've done it. I used to be in the Christian church for 10 years. I was in a Southern Baptist church where I was the men's leader. I went to seminary class, and I was really educated with this stuff. And people looked at me to try to, I wasn't a pastor, but I certainly had some knowledge that I could share. And so it was really easy to get that power dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from that world and back into this world, I see it even here. And especially since COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people have awakened since COVID because of the world and the way that they see the world going on, and all the false flags and everything.
Let's say they're awakening.
Awakening, yes. It's
opening their eyes.
Yeah, it's a progress, right?
Uh-huh.
But there's a lot of content out there now. Like, everything you flip through, there's all kinds of beautiful spiritual stuff. There's a lot of bullshit in there too.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to warn you guys, like, and I'm not some spiritual guru or anything like that, but I just wanted to tell you that just be careful. Use your intuition as you guide through people's things, and don't sign up for these classes. And people make a lot of money doing this type of stuff that they don't have. They're not coming from a heart space. They're not coming from the right space. And it happens in the churches. It happens in any of the religions. You know this. And I just wanted to tell you, use your discernment. If a teacher feels right, and they laugh a lot, and just use your intuition and your discernment with that.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier how there's this like flood of like spiritual insight and like knowledge on you can like flip through your thing and get it all day, but you're only reading it and like comprehending it in your mind. Understanding here, and it's like, oh, I resonate with that. And I know I personally, when I started getting on my journey, my healing path was, I read all these books, and then it's like, oh, I'm awakened now, and I'm an enlightened person, and it took life like smashing me to the ground a little bit and humbling me more to get that out of me, and just because we read a spiritual insight, we understand it intellectually, doesn't mean we grounded it into our being and are living it and embodying that
the grounded piece. Yes.
Yeah. It's to really ground in some of the spiritual wisdom takes a lifetime.
Yeah. Over and over again.
Over and over again of like facing your experiences in life. This isn't something you can do while meditating all the time. You know, like
love and light's only part of it.
Yeah. You gotta face the muck as it comes
darkness,
up.
Yeah. Gotta get dirty.
Gotta get dirty.
And so that comes to, you said the understanding. So there's a lot of understanding out there. You read something and it resonates with you, like, wow, that's really amazing. But do you know it? Do you really know it? And that knowing comes from living it, experiencing it, and I'll share a story about this knowing. And it was after this past divorce. I could see her through the window. I had a back porch, and I could see her through the window, and she had not left yet. She was in the process of moving out of the house. And I had pain inside of me. We both like butt heads, and we both wanted this. And as much as I say that, I didn't want it, but I was looking at her through the window, and she was in a rocking chair. And I just started in my mind fabricating these judgments, like, well, see if you can do better than me, it's stuff like that. And I, in my mind, I'll call her a name or something in my head, and I'm like, oh my God. And I was become aware of my judgment was coming from my pain. I was just hurt, and I wanted to make myself feel better by tearing her down in my head. And it made me feel better, right? And so you can read the word, don't judge, and you judge how you judge others. And all that makes sense in your mind and your understanding. But in that moment, I had this epiphany sort of thing where I felt it. I felt, oh my God, I'm judging her to cover up my pain. I'm making another human suffer so that I can have less suffering. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's messed up. And so that's what judgment is, right? Mm-hmm. I'm making someone else suffer so I suffer less. You can read that, and you can hear it right now, and you can have it in your head, but until you really experience that, then that becomes the knowing between the heart and the head space.
Catch yourself doing it, like, wow, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And then changing it.
Yeah. So that knowing, I think, is big. You can know it in your head. And that's a lot of this spirituality that's going on right now. But there's a lot of grounded spirituality than knowing, like the Ram Dassas of the world. Mm-hmm. I read Ram Dass, or I'll listen to something that I listened to 5-10 years ago. Holy cow.
And every time you re-listen, it's like, oh, man, there's some nuggets I didn't get last time.
Yeah, I used to do that in the Bible. As I'd read through the Bible, I'd read it. I read it several times. And I'd get a chapter or a verse or something, and I'd read through it. And I'm like, a whole new understanding just came to me. And so it doesn't matter what it is, we can revisit that. So I think that knowing keeps continuing and continuing, but the knowing comes in the experience of it, not by reading it or by seeing it on TikTok or seeing it on Instagram or Facebook, one of those things, which is all great because it's what inspires us. It's what initiates that trigger of understanding. And then when you get to the understanding, you come to the knowing.
Yeah. Yeah, the biggest key with it all is to not let it get to our ego, the spiritual ego. Like I personally, like in the plant medicine world and all of the things that I was doing, like I developed a pretty spiritual ego. I went vegetarian for a while, then hated everyone that wasn't vegetarian around me, and
that meat stinks. It does sometimes. But
I don't know if I got that bad. But,
well, in your head, you probably thought it though.
Yeah. Actually, no, I was probably more like, oh my God, it still smells so good.
Then they make those products.
But your meat stinks.
Then they make those products that look like meat. And no offense to any vegetarians, I'm pretty much vegetarian myself, except fish now. Sometimes chicken here and there. And my body changes, and I'm just listening to my body. And I love fruit and vegetables. I just love them to death. But that's changed. And so I'm not saying, I think eventually I might go to a plant-based diet, but not from a judgmental space.
Yeah, just because you're feeling that's what your body wants.
Right. Yeah. So no, don't mean to offend anybody, trigger anybody.
What?
We trigger the hell out of people.
That can be a trigger sometimes.
Yeah.
One thing I've learned through my journey is that the more I see when I'm triggered and move through it and realize like, oh, I'm judging that person or this and that, the more I do that, the less I get triggered. You know, I mean, I'm pretty good at just like not being triggered like lately.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, you know, I can like date somebody, and then it's like, oh, this isn't working out. Okay, like no hard feelings. Like I still love you.
Right.
Like we're just not a good fit. It doesn't have to be this. I think what happens is when we're wounded, we're like expecting the outside world to fulfill certain aspects of ourselves.
Sure.
And so, like in a relationship standpoint, it's like, oh, we put so much on that relationship fulfilling a piece of ourselves. And when that doesn't work out, that's what creates that, we're supposed to have this beautiful, idealistic life together, and now it's not, and it's your fault.
Yep. Well, that's that love piece pulling away from you that you filled with them.
Yeah.
Like we said before.
Yeah, and then there's an opportunity to like, oh, I'm just gonna love myself.
Love that piece that's
and
broken or hurt.
Yep. Yeah, because it's that broken, hurt piece of ourselves that's like grasping outside of ourselves to get only what we can give.
You know, I read something I did. I mean, all the information is out there in the collective, right? It doesn't really matter who says it anymore, who gets credit for it. Because I feel like it's an egoic concept anyway. Who gets kind of credit for it? Which, you know, I understand.
It's all the universe.
It is, yeah. But, you know, when your heart chakras, you say the 7 chakras in the body, and we talk a lot about the heart. And how does you have a heart opening? You know, when you get these triggers, what's going to open this heart? And you said it before. It's like you have to crash. Like for your heart to truly open, it has to break.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order for it to receive light or emit light, it has to break open. Like it has to formulate those cracks, and in those cracks is when we let the love come back into it. So we cover it. Our inner child is covered by these walls of protection. So you know, it's and then it's hard coded, and until we break it open, and not. It's not like we can just do it to do it.
No.
It's like, you know,
life will bring experiences that'll do it for you.
And I'm sure everyone has. A lot of people listening are here, you know, being wounded. That wounded heart breaks it open, and now we can let it heal properly. You know, get past all these walls that we've created. So I feel like when somebody triggers me now, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing another piece of myself I need to
heal
and be with and love on.
Yeah. So when we're getting triggered, maybe we're not ready to deal with that trigger in that moment, and somebody triggers us and we're like, okay, I need to take a moment and I'm gonna leave. There's no shame in that.
No shame
like,
in
hey,
that.
I don't know what's going on right now. I've done it to you, and you've done it to me.
Yeah.
Where, hey, I don't know what's going on with me right now, but I'm gonna go sit with this, and then we come back and we'll talk about it.
Yep.
And, you know, and that comes to another piece is like I was asked the question by Kelly, like, what can we do as man and women to help each other? Because we hurt each other. We had that last episode on that about how we keep hurting the toxics, hurt each other and put out of balance. Well, what can we do to heal when we are triggered? What do we do after we're triggered?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I say something to you and I trigger you.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Or what would I do?
Yeah.
If I'm the one being triggered?
Sure.
You know, for me, it's like instead of, so what I would do is I would first catch myself being aware of like, oh, now I'm triggered, so now I'm like, you're the problem. Catch that. And then if I can't talk about it right then, like just have space and go and do life. Personally, I like really, you know, I'm a carpenter, painter, and for me, doing that kind of meditative work, like in a grounded way, helps me, I get grounded, I'm out of here, out of all that, and then the insights will just kind of naturally come through my workday. And that's kind of my own personal process, and I think everyone has to find their own way of handling triggers.
Okay.
Another person might, my my honest opinion and suggestion is to find a grounded activity. I think those are the best. So
when you're being triggered, you're saying from a triggered standpoint.
Yeah, go for a run.
Yeah.
Go to the gym. Go for a walk. Go.
You could meditate. You could do whatever. Yeah. Swim.
Meditating isn't so grounded, body centered. Yeah, yeah. Meditating while you're triggered can be really hard.
Well, that's badass spirituality there.
Yeah, and I think we're all just like kind of humans. We're not gurus. We're just humans, right. And we need grounded ways to deal with those moments that we get really upset like that.
Sure.
And I find it really beautiful when those things can come up and you have a good enough connection with the person to like be able to just talk about it. And,
yeah.
I mean, it's one thing I really loved about the last girlfriend I had. It's just there was no holding back on any of it, and it was so great. We could talk to each other, and it would come up, and it was like, oh, you're right, or it was just very easy.
But what did she do? Like, say you got triggered because you're speaking from the triggered position.
Yep.
What did she do for you that helped you through that?
Well, just hearing what I have to say and understanding, I would say.
Yeah.
Like really listening and then not judging me for my perspective.
Yeah. Because a lot of times the person triggered trying to talk to their partner about being triggered could also cause a trigger.
Well, then, now it causes a trigger.
Right.
And then it gets in this feedback loop. Then things spin out of control.
Because I had that happen in relationships where something that she did reminded me, or no, sometimes I didn't even know why. I was just irritated. I was just pissed off. Like, why am I so angry? And then I sat with it. I go do some grounding things. I don't even remember what I did. It probably wasn't very grounding, but I was working through and understanding this space that I needed to be in. And so I come back and I say, listen, this is what I got triggered on. Here's what I need for me. I'm setting my boundaries and being an asshole about it, and then I triggered her, and it's just a bad situation. So from that perspective, being the person on the other side, I triggered you, or somebody triggered you, and you're in a relationship. What can I do as a partner to really hold space for you to listen, not just listen, but understand what you're saying to me?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not try to fix it.
Yeah, not try to fix it. Just listen. Not judge it. Don't judge it. Just be there and listen, and also don't take it personal. Realize like, oh, this person's triggered. That's something within them.
Yeah.
And could actually have nothing to do with it.
That's huge. That's it right there.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you.
Yep.
Like you're being triggered. There's something from your past that happened that is unhealed.
Yep.
And even though I might have said something that triggered you, it probably wasn't what I said that wasn't being an asshole. I was trying probably just a familiar situation you've been put in. Mm-hmm. And now it's up to you to handle that. I could say, I apologize if I've caused any harm, because you don't know as the person that is being, is giving the trigger, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's the key.
So let's just break it down real simple. So don't take it personal.
Don't take it personal. Number one rule. If someone is triggered by you, do not take it personally. Number one.
Yep.
And then that makes it a lot easier to not get triggered.
And not being emotionally attached to what's being said next.
Yep.
To be a witness of it. Like, okay, now I'm going to help this person through it. That brings awareness. So the person is helping you and needs to be aware that, okay, I just triggered this person. Let me help them through it. Maybe they need space and they don't need me right now. But okay, don't be emotional about it. It's not about me. What would you do? Don't take it personal.
Don't take it personal. Listen with an open heart. I think that ties in with don't take it personal.
Yeah.
They kind of lead into each other. Listen with an open heart, and
don't try to fix it.
Don't try to fix it.
They're going to fix it themselves as they bring awareness to it. They don't need our help. They just need us to be there for them.
Yeah, they just need a witness and someone to be there.
And then when you're on the triggered end of it, and you feel this trigger, and it can be anger. Most of the time it is.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with that, you think?
Yeah, and so that one depends on how intense it is and your kind of personal style for handling those things. But my personal style would generally be like, oh, I need to have space or alone time so I need my space, alone time so I can, let or gain more understanding of what this is.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you have someone that you're really close with and you can just kind of more naturally talk about it as it comes up. That's really what I want in a relationship, is to be able to be totally open and free with like, oh, this is coming up in me. And
You remember when I got triggered on the second episode, I think it was, where I got real vulnerable about when I shared the part about when I was a boy having to hide from one of my family members chasing me. I was by a staircase, didn't come out till my mom came out. I felt really vulnerable about that, and then sharing it with you guys, and I'm glad I did, because the more you talk about things, about your pain and your sufferings, the less weight it carries in your energetic field, I feel. But it did make me feel great at that moment. And there was a twofold trigger there. So the trigger of being vulnerable was always used against me in past relationships. And then I was talking to Kelly when I finally got a hold of her about an hour and a half later. And she did that. She held space for me to be able to, and she asked me good questions. She wasn't trying to fix me.
Well, I think that's a good thing to hit on, is if you're supporting someone that's triggered, ask the questions. Don't tell them how they should be.
Questions.
Yeah, ask some questions and help them get to the bottom of it.
How are you feeling right now? What kind of emotion are you feeling right now? Is it, oh, I'm hurt, or I'm pissed off, or I'm, and her doing that for me made good points. And her doing that for me, it made me reveal what was really the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that I was being vulnerable to my audience, or to our audience. It was the fact that every time I was vulnerable in a past relationship, it was used against me. And then here I am in a relationship being vulnerable with her, and she's the one that helped me understand it. It was a beautiful, circle of life in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and then you move through it, and then on the other end of it, you notice like, oh, I have more vulnerability. I can be more open, and I can share these things, and then now it doesn't trigger me to do that.
Yeah. And another, how do you know something's not healed when you're talking about that? This is something that came to me not too long ago. I mean, it's been a while ago, but
if you're having any kind of negative emotional response to something, it's generally, oh, there's some healing there.
Yeah. Well, it came up when my daughter got home from Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
She was talking about some of my family issues, and I started getting real passionate about it. Like, she sensed my energy change, and I was like, holy shit, I just got triggered from that. Because if I could calmly talk about it and say, yeah, well, it just happened like this and that, I was like, no, I can't believe that shit happened. And, I'm like, oh, no. Work to do.
I've been having to say, I mean, my big thing right now is like healing with my mom. And like me and my daughter were in the car, and sometimes we get talking about my mom, and I just get this it's like, I know there's a lot of work to do there. I don't even know what to do about it.
Not yet.
Not yet.
And not in the car while you're driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Road rage. And road rage. That's a trigger, right?
That's a trigger.
Well, I don't know. Everyone's is different with that, and everyone's tolerances are different with that. But it's not the person that cut you off's fault. I mean, yeah, they were being a jerk when they cut you off, but they probably didn't mean it. Maybe they had to.
I mean, one thing that helps me with road rage is I just look at the times where I'm kind of unconscious driving, and how many times have I pulled in front of somebody, or, like we all have our off days when we're not driving the best.
Yeah. And
that's okay. And I used to have some decent road rage, but I've definitely used it as a practice.
Yeah.
But Another thing I've done in my years is I choose not to drive to places with like high traffic. So, for instance, I live here in Ipsy. I'll go towards Ann Arbor to work, but anything towards Detroit, I'm just not going to accept the job because I don't like the stress of being in traffic. I don't like spending my time in traffic. I don't like driving towards Detroit and like all the. It's just stressful to be in, so I choose not to do it.
Yeah, and we you have to look at the person in that car completely unaware. Maybe they're not conscious of who they truly are. Like, isn't that what it is? We become remembering. And I heard this from Aubrey Marcus's podcast today with Stefano Matias. Is that right?
Yeah.
He had a new episode. Did you hear it yet?
No, I did not.
Oh, well, anyway, he talked about remembering and remembering members of your body. Like if we're a collective, somebody's the fingers, somebody's the hands, somebody's the eyes. We're remembering ourselves together. We're coming together consciously to create this community, right, of humanity. And I just thought it was really beautiful. And we have to remember that maybe they're just not aware of who they are yet. And we need to love them. And something funny thing I like to say is, fuck off, namaste. It's just like a balance, right? So I get my point, I get my anger out, but yet I say, I love you too.
Yeah. I'll joke about it.
I'm saying that's the right thing to do. It's just what I do.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I'll see people like kind of driving around and be like, I'll just laugh, I'll just chuckle. It's like, oh, someone's in a rush today. Yeah.
my kids and I know it's probably not appropriate, but my kids and I say, oh, he's got to poop.
Yeah, I mean, we all have those days like we were just talking about earlier about, when you're in a rush, everything's crazy like that. And so there's a lot of people out there just like so enmeshed in their head about all the stuff they have to do.
Maybe something happened.
They're not even paying attention.
Yeah, but maybe something happened at home. Maybe they're a child or they got to run to the hospital and they're in a hurry. They got to get somewhere.
Yeah, there's all kinds of situations.
Know, right?
You just never know.
Yeah.
And just think of that. That's like every person you come across.
Yeah. We don't know what they're going through.
You just don't know a person's personal journey at all. And this is one thing I find really interesting too, is just like, okay, I meet a lot of people and do some cool stuff nowadays, but people don't know my past. They see me who I am right now and don't realize that I came from, I was talking with a friend the other day and it's just like I was doing I had a stepdad who was just like total white trash, like just total kind of like drug addict, womanizer, like not good person.
Right.
And
not aware at all.
And I was just like, I hadn't even thought about him in a long time. I was just like, wow, that's like my friend. She's like, I would never know you had that kind of background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the most saintly people have had the worst upbringings.
Yeah. I mean, one instance was just being a little vulnerable here. At 16 years old, I smoked crack with that guy. He's my stepdad and pretty much introduced me to drugs.
Right.
And just seeing how that era of my life was just introduction to drugs and being 16 years old and being introduced to cocaine and crack. And before that, pharmaceutical opiates and marijuana and alcohol and pretty much everything you can think of. Yeah. As a teenager, I got my hands on through this guy. And this is part of my own healing that I'm getting triggered a lot lately towards my mom, is just like, just seeing how she wasn't like a mom that like protects and like nurtures her children. Instead, she did the opposite of bringing these shit men into our lives that really disturbed the early part of my life.
They don't even realize the damage they're doing.
No, it's been years of healing, and I'm ready to move beyond it all.
Quick question, real quick, with that early drug experience, is that kind of why you felt pulled to the plant medicines? Like, what was that?
I would say so. Well, actually, I was like really interested. I mean, for one thing, while we're on drugs, I just want to say Dare was a total failure and only made me interested in drugs. Now, so I can't blame this all on my stepdad. It was like everything was kind of set up in this way to where I had Dare. In Dare, I remember just like they were talking about drugs. I was like, wow, what are drugs? Like, there's things that do this and make you feel this way? Sign me up. And then I just happened at the same time get a stepdad in my life that was into drugs. And then I remember as a teenager, I really loved, like, I heard about psychedelics. And I'm like, man, psychedelics. Yeah. Like, I want to do psychedelics. And, but I lived in a small rural town where that just wasn't, there was no accessibility there. Sure. And so in high school, I like read up for years on how to grow mushrooms. And then as soon as I moved out of my mom's house, like, here I am growing mushrooms, and that started my plant medicine journey.
Yeah.
And then through people I knew through that, like, I started to get it connected to ayahuasca and all those kinds of things. And I do think that I was more drawn to the plant medicine journey due to my own use of drugs in my life.
But it came full circle, though. So, yeah, the bad experiences in the beginning, the earlier life, drew you to the plant medicines, which actually healed a lot of things for you.
Healed a lot, but it doesn't do it all. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, the plant medicines are, like, I forget who said this to me. I said it's like a trailer to a movie. It gives you just enough to get you interested.
Yeah.
But you really got to do the work to feel that space.
Yeah, it's like I think Terrence McKenna said, like psychedelics are like a key that opens the door, but then you have to walk through the door. You gotta go into your life and live differently. The psychedelics can open you into this new realm of possibility and feeling connected to spirit. Like, I feel like people that get really interested in psychedelics, like myself, for instance, are just spiritually cut off.
Sure.
Completely. And so for me, the psychedelics like reconnected me with my own spirit. But then the other part of the lesson is with the psychedelics is there's a time to let go. You're reconnected to your spirit. Keep going back to the psychedelics is only causing, it's only disempowering yourself.
Sure. Well, that's what Ram Dass's journey was.
Yeah.
He was a professor at Harvard back in the 60s. Right? I'm sure.
Yep. I know the Ram Dass story.
Yeah, the Ram Dass story. And it just, he was leading this research in LSD, and the effects on his graduate students were some of the subjects that he worked with. And he was doing it himself, too. Well, long story short, he took the fall for, he was the leader of it, right? So he took the fall, got fired from Harvard to protect his people. And what was it, Timothy Leary?
Yeah.
So he was his partner there too, and worked with Harvard. Well, then Ram Dass went off before he was Ram Dass, and did all this LSD because he just could never stay in this place. And so then he took him to the journey to India, where he looked for somebody who would have answers for him. And he was searching like almost a month before he found Maharishi, and he came up to this guru. Well, he synchronistically found Christian Das, I believe his name is, right? He was a young artist, and he's still around today and does wonderful music. And he actually took him to Maharishi as guru. And so Ram Dass is standing in front of Maharishi, and I know I'm butchering the story, but it's, read it for yourself and you'll get a better understanding of what it is. But Ram Dass had a ton of LSD with him at the time. And Maharishi looked at him, and he knew what he had. He said, "Give me what you brought," pretty much. And he took like a ridiculous amount.
Dose, yeah.
And Ram Dass is looking at him like, "What's cool?" No effect, because this man embodied that experience naturally. He was in this state of awareness all the time. He didn't need those psychedelics to help him be in the state that Ram Dass was looking for. And that's when Ram Dass knew he had found his guru.
Yep.
And that's in his guru actually gave him the name Ram Dass. And he spent a lot of time with him, and then the story of Ram Dass after that. And if you're not acquainted with him, it's just a wonderful human that walked this earth and really a master.
Mm-hmm.
And just goes right into plant medicine and how he was just gave him something, but then he looked at further and found something that's even more remarkable.
Yeah. The plant medicine's it just opens the door.
Yeah, and you don't need it at all. You really don't need it.
You don't need it. I mean, I think it can help fast track some people. I think some people are more suited for that journey.
Sure. If you feel called to it.
If you feel called to it, definitely check it out. But also be aware that on that journey, there's a lot of like little traps and pitfalls of spiritual egoism, and
you get stuck there.
Dark shamans, and there's a whole thing.
There's a big thing about ayahuasca now, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of people talk about ayahuasca. And people are getting hurt by that. Not necessarily just the medicine itself, because I've never had a bad experience with it. But it's the dark shamans.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be careful.
People that aren't trained, or they're using it for power. Or there's if you want to do plant medicines, definitely do your homework, and
because you're entering a vulnerable state.
Use your intuition. Definitely get in touch with your intuition before you go off.
Yeah, and trust the people that you're with.
Yeah.
If you don't trust somebody, if you feel the energy's off, don't do it.
Yep.
So,
because there's all kinds of crazy. And I mean, my journey through the plant medicine world, like, showed me, there were some people I sat with and just like, oh, nope, like, this is not good. I was good enough to be able to, like, be aware of it. And that was part of my journey of, like, being able to see that. And I think eventually I'd like to, I see myself as being more of a advocate on proper plant medicine use and how to properly find the right kind of people you want to be with. And
sure. Yeah, because that's a big triggering thing. Like the whole subject about triggering tonight, right?
Yep.
Well, plant medicines trigger the hell out of you. They take you into places maybe you didn't even know.
Ayahuasca, you can sit there and just be triggered all night.
Yeah.
And pretty much in a just discomfort.
Yep. Psilocybin mushrooms, same thing.
Uh-huh.
That's just like, wow.
Yep. And I noticed for me is like as the medicine started to not be useful for me, it's just like their effects just kind of, it's like, oh, I'm not really getting insight anymore. It's like, oh, I just get a body feeling now. Like I feel my body more.
And you have to respect it too, right? So whatever's local to you, whatever your body's like, psilocybin mushrooms are pretty much prevalent around the world, right?
Yep.
Ayahuasca is located, in the South America, Central America type of places. And so it might have more profound effects on the indigenous people there. I think there's some credibility to that, to what plants are naturally occurring in your area that are healing for your body and for your ethnic backgrounds and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
What's Iboga? I think that come from Africa?
I think so.
Yeah. And then that San Pedro, obviously it's a cactus.
Yeah, San Pedro, peyote.
Yeah. So some of the indigenous people have ceremonies and built many things around it. So I didn't know we were going to talk about plant medicines tonight.
I know, I did not see that one coming out today. We just kind of got on a little plant medicine tangent.
Well, it's a triggering thing, right? So yeah, I think the importance of that. I think I've done quite a bit of journeys myself, and I don't do them anymore. I'm not called to them. I just now I'm in this other place where I don't really want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm kind of fine. Just doing my life day to day.
Yeah.
I don't need to open more cans of worms. I got enough on my plate.
Yeah, I think it encourages the shadow work, right? I think that's really what we're searching for, that darkness inside of us. What is this darkness?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to purge? Like, oh, and here's another thing, the trigger, like we were talking about earlier about being new to your spiritual journey. Be careful of these people who are telling you got to kill the ego.
Yeah.
I heard that a lot.
Uh-huh. And you're looking for the ego death.
Death, die, kill. No.
No, you want to make friends.
Well, yeah.
You want to make friends with your ego.
It's not a competition.
We're not trying to fight each other
Let's
here.
not fight.
Like, fighting is not
yourself.
the answer.
Your ego is very important in your life, don't you think?
Uh-huh.
I mean, without our ego, we'd walk in front of a car.
Yeah, you couldn't exist here in physical form.
It gives us some awareness of what we are in this body. We could shift around and be floating in cloud 9, but our ego kind of brings us back down. Okay, whoa, what was that? So the ego is important as long as it's not running. As long as it's not running the show or piloting the ship. It's there to be our helper. It's there to be our friend. It's there to be a tool for us to live this amazing existence.
Yep,
together.
and interface with the reality.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's
All
been
right.
good.
It's been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else?
I feel really good about that one.
I know. I feel like I'm feeling good about it too.
Yeah. If you made it to the end, thank you again. We really appreciate this. And, spirituality, this walk, this journey of life isn't about, 30 seconds of what tidbits you can get. It's actually doing the work. And if you've made it this far, you're really doing the work. You really want to know these answers. And just like we are trying to figure this out together, we're here to help, and if you have any comments, suggestions, anything like that, please let us know. We want to hear from you. We do have a Facebook group. We're going to change the name now, called the Journey of the Wounded Masculine, but it's going to be the Journey of the Wounded Soul. And that is more inclusive with everyone. And we never meant to exclude anything.
No.
We're just speaking because we're masculines, and we thought that would be...
Well, we're men.
Right.
And then we kind of
Good
take
point.
that as we're
Touché.
masculines, and we want to give the masculine perception,
Yeah.
but then it's like...
Listen.
But it's like, well, no, like actually, I mean, our original idea was to we wanted to inspire men.
Right.
To be more men, but I think this is inspire. We want to inspire
bigger than
anyone. It's bigger than just men.
And we're not the experts on how a female walks this earth. We're not.
No.
But we are experts in our own journeys.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is true.
So I'm glad we changed the name.
Yeah, me too. I think it feels good.
Let us know how you think.
Let us know how you think. Let us know if you got questions, if you got any ideas for what you want to learn about. That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do some surveys in the Facebook group and, get that a little more interactive. Like I said, like we said before, we're going to start putting some more podcast materials on different platforms too. So,
yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Let's end it.
So peace and love to you. Thank you again. We love you.
We do.
And we'll see you next time.